Hello guys, welcome back to video 3. My name's Jon Harris, I teach drums here at ICMP London, and here is your third video of the introduction to the drum set. Cool, I wanted to start off with a little bit of sort of inspiration and how you can possibly get motivated playing an instrument and playing the drums. I find that actually going and watching live music is an amazing way to get inspired and to get motivated. I find doing this for a living and playing drums for my job, I really have to kind of keep myself motivated and inspired at all times. Also, living in London, there's so much live music every night of the week. I tend to go to at least a couple, 2 or 3 sort of gigs every month just to get myself really inspired and to watch different musicians. And you can steal, I know it sounds funny, but you can steal a lot of ideas from them. This is what music's all about. It's about sharing and being inspired. And there's so many amazing musicians out there in London. I think it's really important to go and check other drummers out, other musicians, and see what they have to offer. The other way that might be really cool for you guys is to actually go to some jam nights. Now, there's so many all over London. Just Google jam nights, London jam nights, and loads of them will come up. A couple are the Ronnie Scott's jam night, which is really cool. The Marmalade Jam, Troy Bar is really, really cool as well. But Google all of these, they'll all come up. And a jam night is basically where loads of musicians go and people just watching as well. And they get up with people that they might not know and they jam through tunes. And it's a really amazing way of meeting people and networking and also kind of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone as well and playing with people that you never usually play with and maybe songs that you don't particularly know, and you kind of jam your way through them. And it's amazing to meet people and also to kind of get new ideas and inspiration behind the drum set. So definitely, even if you don't want to play, go and check out some live London jam nights. Also, another way is with your practice routines. We talked about this in video 2, but I think it's really important to make your practice routines fun and inspiring. This is supposed to be a fun journey. It's music, it should be inspiring, it should be exciting. So when you're practicing and doing your practice routines, make sure you're enjoying your practice. Pick out rhythms that you want to play, pick out genres that you want to play, and try and make it as exciting as possible. Don't look at practice as a chore. It's definitely something that should be enjoyed. And you're never going to be the best drummer in the world. There's so many amazing drummers out there. There's always going to be someone that's better than you. So enjoy the process, enjoy the journey. It's so important. So I wanted to look at something slightly different now. I want to give you guys a few different exercises for counting. So you don't need anything for this. You don't need sticks or a practice pad. You just need your voice and your hands. And we're actually going to clap through some different rhythms and different subdivisions from a bar of 4/4. So we've looked at quarter notes and eighth notes. We're now going to look at 16th notes. So that's crotchets, quavers, and semiquavers. And the easiest way to do that is just to move through the subdivisions. So the way that a bar is subdivided. So if we take quarter notes, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And what I recommend as well is actually counting out loud. It's really good because you can then visualize exactly where you are in the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, just like we're counting in a song. Okay, and now if we're going to divide it again, and we're going to now have quavers, we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, if we're going to move into semiquavers, which is really interesting, I love semiquavers, we're now going to have 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So you see we've still got the quarter notes in there, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So now we've got 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Okay, and again 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason it's so important to know these subdivisions and these rhythms is you then can apply it to the drum set. So we can use quarter notes, eighth notes and 16th notes with all of our fill orchestrations, groove ideas. The more you understand it and the theory behind it, the easier it will be to apply to the drum set. Cool, once you've practiced those a few times, what's really cool then is to move through the subdivisions. So we can actually do a bar of each. So if we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, and you can do this with your metronome. So set your metronome to that quarter note pulse. Definitely a quarter note pulse as well, because then you're kind of measuring the gaps in between those quarter notes. Once you've got that, what we can then do is take it even further to the next level. And I just want you to count out loud the quarter notes, but still clap the other subdivisions. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've still got quarter notes, eighth notes and 16th notes, but we're now clapping the quarter notes. So you're counting, but then playing through the different subdivisions. As you can see there, when I was doing the 16th notes, I'm kind of accenting the 1, 2, 3 and 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, which is nice because you can kind of keep yourself in time, and then you're monitoring the gaps in between those quarter notes with your metronome. So it's quite a nice way to kind of keep yourself in time. So let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What you can then do, if you want to take it further, is you can then start keeping time potentially with the hi-hat or the kick drum. So what you could do is you could count the quarter notes on the hi-hat. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay. Or if you want to take it to the next level, we could go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we've got eighth notes on the bass drum and the hi-hat. So we're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. If you can do that, amazing. That is essentially 5-way coordination, because what we're doing, bass drum, hi-hat, both hands, that's 4, and then we're counting out loud. So you've got essentially 5 different voices there that you're using. And as a drummer, obviously you need amazing coordination because you're doing a lot of patterns where it involves all 4 limbs, but then you're counting out loud. And I can't stress how important counting out loud is, because 1, it shows that you understand the exercise. 2, it gives you a reference in time. And 3, it's amazing for your coordination. So definitely count out loud. See how far you can take that as well. We're obviously just clapping at the moment. What you can then do, if you want to, is start picking up your sticks and playing the rhythms on your snare or around the toms. So if we get those feet going again, 1 and 2 and 3, and let's do singles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, so we're just doing singles, so just right, left, all the way through. So we've got a really nice exercise then. It kind of sounds a little bit sort of bossa nova-ish. We've got the foot ostinato underneath, and then we've got the hand pattern on the snare drum. You could then do doubles and paradiddles if you want to as well. The possibilities are endless. And then if you want to, you can start orchestrating it around the kit. So we could go 1 and 2 and singles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 4. So I'm just playing through the quarter notes, eighth notes and 16th notes again, but just randomly orchestrating them around the drum kit. And this is where it starts becoming really interesting and you get some really nice orchestrations and phrases. Cool. Let's take paradiddles for an example. I love paradiddles. I think they're amazing. They sound really, really cool in different groove ideas and around the kit. So let's try it in a groove sense. So a paradiddle, if you remember, is right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. One more time. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Okay, so get the rudiment in your head. What I then want you to do, if you are on a kit, if you're on a practice pad, maybe just play your right hand on your leg and your left hand on the practice pad, or if you've got two practice pads, amazing, use one for the hi-hat and one for the snare, or you could play on a cushion and on your practice pad as well, just kind of get inventive. What I want you to do is put your right hand on the hi-hat and your left hand on the snare drum, and we're going to play a paradiddle. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Okay, doesn't sound that interesting at the moment. Can you remember in video 2 when we looked at those orchestrations for a paradiddle around the kit and we did right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left? What I want you to practice now is using the floor tom and the rack tom as like big accents within the paradiddle. And all of the other notes, the little notes on the snare, I want you to use as ghost notes, so small notes. So it's going to be so big, big, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. So my accented notes are quite big strokes and all of my ghost notes are about that far off the snare. The reason I've asked you to do that is now if we put our right hand back on the hi-hat and we use those accents like we've just been practicing, you get this. Okay, so it's starting to sound a little bit like a drum groove because we've got that massive backbeat on the snare drum. Okay, so get used to the movement of that exercise. Once you've done that and that's comfortable, we're now going to put a bass drum on that first big right hand. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Okay, so we've now got a drum groove, and it's rather than just sort of like playing any old drum groove, we've got a drum groove made up of paradiddles, which is really, really exciting. Once you've got that, just really kind of take your time and get used to the movements. Once you've got that, start to speed up the tempo, and this is where your metronome comes in handy. So turn your metronome on and set it to Quavers around this sort of tempo. You can go slightly higher if you want to, or slightly less. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and or 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to match up the stickings from the paradiddle with that metronome. So we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, and with the bass drum, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 1. Okay, and the beauty of that is, I'll work out roughly what that tempo is. That's about 60 BPM. So set it to 60 and then put quavers on. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, and the beauty of having the metronome is it's going to keep you in time. So leave the metronome on and practice that. Once you start getting slightly faster, so at the moment we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and don't forget, don't speed up until you've got those movements correct. We need the accents and we need the ghost notes. Once it's fluid, then you can start to speed it up and it sounds really interesting. See, we've got a really, really intricate paradiddle groove. Cool, I hope you enjoyed the rudiment exercise we just did there with the paradiddles. Now let's have a look into a more complex and different groove that we're going to use for the chorus of Love Philosophy by Jamiroquai. So let's look into this chorus groove. So in the verse, we had quite a sort of straight rhythm on the hi-hat, the bass drum and the kick drum. We're going to stay on these three voices, but now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding in like an offbeat rhythm on the hi-hat pattern. And we're going to introduce a slightly different pattern on the bass drum. So in the verse groove, we had the bass drum on 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to get very disco-esque and we're going to put the bass drum on each beat of the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that is very typical of any disco or like house tune or dance tune. You've probably heard that before. And just get used to the way that that bass drum moves. And then what we're going to do is we're going to keep that snare on 2 and 4. So we're actually going to have a unison with the bass drum. And that bass drum pattern is actually called 4 to the floor. 4 to the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Then what we can do is we can either keep the hi-hat pattern the same as we did in the verse, if that's kind of where you're at technically, or we can change it up. So if we're going to keep it the same, that hi-hat is going to be in unison with all those bass drums for the simplified version. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's just in unison. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, when you actually play it with the song, it's slightly faster. It's around. Okay, but for now, practice this nice and slow, get used to the mechanics of it. If we're going to use the slightly more advanced version with the hi-hat pattern that we used in the verse, it's going to sound like this. So we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Slow it down a little bit. So you can hear all the voices are very consistent, they don't really change, and you're in that nice kind of pocket and nice groove. Make sure as well they're in unison, and definitely take your time and get used to the coordination factor of this groove. Cool. If you want to take it a step up from there, what we can actually do is keep the snare and the bass drum exactly the same, but we can change the hi-hat pattern just slightly. And what we're going to do is add the hi-hat in on the off beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So all the clapping that we did earlier was building up to this. Okay, so we're now understanding and working through these different subdivisions. So we're now on the and, or the off beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and in Quavers. Okay, so this is really typical of disco music and house music, any dance tunes you probably heard. You've got that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I'll play you the groove, how it should sound, and then I'll break it down a little bit. If you've listened to the Jamiroquai tune, as you can hear, that the hi-hat pattern is quite sort of complex and it sounds quite programmed to me. These are just a few options that you can use when playing along in the chorus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so can you hear we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I'll slow it down. Let's get that bass drum going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's almost going back and forth. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So just get that going, get used to that, and then let's add in the snare. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so your hands are going against each other. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So there's no unisons with your hands. There's only a unison with the bass drum and the snare. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this is in all the gaps. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Don't try and play the whole pattern all together at first. Build it up. So either start with the bass drum and the snare. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or the bass drum and the hi-hat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and then add in the snare. 1. Going against each other. Okay, so that is a little kind of insight into where you can take the chorus to. It might take a little bit of building up to and a little bit of practice, but again, go through all the clapping examples we did earlier and it will come in massive, massive help when approaching a groove like this. So really look into the clapping, look through into the subdivisions, understand the theory behind it, and then you can start putting it around the kit. If you haven't got an electric kit or an acoustic kit at home, just play the bass drum on the floor. Literally just tap your feet, and then you can use your practice pad as the snare and maybe like a pillow, or if you've got 2 practice pads, use the other one for the hi-hat. But you can do this anywhere. If you haven't got any sticks or anything for that matter, you can just do it on your lap. So just literally right hand on the right leg for the hi-hat, left hand on the left leg for the snare, and then bass drum on 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're just stamping along there. So you can literally do this anywhere, and you can practice all the clapping techniques and speaking. You don't need any equipment. If you've got equipment, amazing, but you don't need it to get started. Cool. As you've probably seen, I'll be doing a Q&A for you guys. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please, 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 please ask away. I'm here to help. Some sort of suggestions that you might want to know about is how I became a session musician, how to record drums, maybe some more advanced practice routines, literally anything. So get your questions ready. Please put them in the comments on the ICMP blog, and I look forward to all your questions. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about how I became a session player. I can answer this in the Q&A if you'd like, but I just thought I'd kind of give a rough introduction about how I became a London session player. Now, I think there is a common misconception that musicians are super lazy and really unreliable. I simply think that's not the case at all. And the successful session musicians that I know, and also myself, I've had to work very hard and be very organised to get where I am in the industry today. So what I think it takes to become a session musician, you definitely need to be outgoing. I think networking is a huge part of the job. On every gig that I do, I try to sort of form new contacts. I go to a lot of jam nights. I'm nice to people and become friends with them. Social media is a really great way to do that and to link up with people as well. But I think networking and knowing people is such an important part of the industry. I seem to get a lot of my work through recommendations of people that I know, or getting booked on a certain tour and then getting rebooked for another tour through certain musicians. So it's really important to know as many different successful people as possible. And it definitely is true. It's who you know. I also think it's incredibly important to be really organised. I'm self-employed. I'm running my own business, Jon Harris Music. I teach, I gig, I actually run my own music agency as well. And it's really important for me to keep my diary organised, keep up with my admin, my emails, and be as organised as possible. I also think, obviously, it's very important to be good at what you do. I've studied and I train professionally, and I continue to practice even now to become better at my craft. I get booked because people like what I do and I am successful and I can do the job that they have asked me to do. So I think it's very important to practice as many different styles as possible, be able to read, and to be that dependable session player that they need for their job. Another thing you might want to ask me in the Q&A is about recording drums. I personally love going into the studio. I've had some amazing experiences and some maybe not so good experiences as well. I think my favourite experience ever was recording with Guy Chambers. Guy Chambers is responsible for the majority of the Robbie Williams stuff that he's done over the years. He's such an amazing guy and so talented and slightly intimidating to work for, but a really, really nice guy as well. I've done quite a few sessions for different French artists for Guy, and different albums as well. And I actually got a tour out of one of the albums that I did for him as well. We went on a 6-month tour. So I've absolutely loved working with Guy over the years. I think my worst experience was when I first came to London and I got an album recording drums for this album, and I was slightly out of my depth, but I also got 2 producers who were very picky and slightly out there with their ideas. And knowing now what I know, some of their ideas weren't really doable, and I probably would have used my experience now to kind of talk them into a better solution. But I think I tried to do too much then, and there were some quite awkward times in the studio where they were trying to get ideas to me that just weren't kind of translating. And we got the album done, but it was probably one of the hardest studio sessions I've ever done. If you've enjoyed these videos and these lessons so far and you want to continue, ICMP offer a wide range of evening classes and courses. Just go to the ICMP website and check out the part-time courses and also all of the other courses they have to offer, and click on the link and see what they can offer you. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget, we've got the Q&A session. Please put your questions in the comments on this video. If you need any other information, as always, please don't hesitate to contact the ICMP admissions team. Check out the ICMP blog, and thank you so much for watching. My name's Jon Harris. Good luck drumming.